Hey there, it's Tom Corson-Knowles, and welcome today to the Authentic Health Coaching Show. I'm so glad you joined us today, and we have an incredible guest to share with you. Her name is Alyce Adams, and now Alyce is a registered nurse, and she's an expert on Kegels for women and on pelvic health for women as well. And I wanted to bring her on the show today because I know it's kind of a taboo topic. You know, no one wants to talk about sex, no one wants to talk about, the pelvic floor and that area of the body because it's, just a big social taboo. And because of that, there's a lot of lack of information out there for women, especially who have problems with pelvic organ prolapse and many other problems that can be incredibly painful and incredibly dangerous as well. And there's also a lot of misinformation out there because there's just not a lot of people talking about this. A lot of the information that's gotten out there, like how to do Kegels, for instance, a lot of people are doing it the wrong way. It can actually make all your problems a lot worse. And so that's why I really want to bring Alyce on the show, because she is known as the Kegel Queen, because she is really the expert, the world's leading expert on Kegel exercises for women. And so she's going to share with us today. She's got a really cool diagram and everything to show us, and some really cool, the right way to do Kegel exercises and to just take better care of your body overall. So I think you're going to love the show today, especially for women. If you're a guy, there might be a few tips and tricks here you'll pick up along the way. But definitely your lady friends will love you if you tell them about this show, okay? So enjoy the interview, take great notes. Well, Alyce, thanks so much for being with us today on the Authentic Health Coaching Show. I know that you're known as the Kegel Queen, so tell us, how did you get that name?
Thanks for having me, Tom. So I started out as a regular registered nurse, not the queen of anything, but I was really always very interested in women's health, especially related to childbirth and women's pelvic health. So when I had my own daughter, I ended up having pelvic health problems myself. My pregnancy was challenging, mostly because I threw up a lot, and I think that really damaged my pelvic floor. My birth was easy, but after my daughter was born and I was getting back into regular life, I noticed that I had incontinence. I would have what women call sneeze pee. I had really awful saggy sensations that it turned out were symptoms of pelvic prolapse. And the worst part was that I had problems with sex. Sex just literally didn't feel the same anymore for me or my husband. And that was just not good enough. So the other stuff I could have lived with, I probably wouldn't have bothered to really take action. But when it came to sex, something that was really important to us, I made a decision that had to change. So I ended up looking around for information about Kegels. Kegel exercises, of course, are exercises for the pelvic floor, and we can talk about the pelvic floor a little bit. I've got my pelvic model to show you. And so I looked around online and asked people, and everybody had just basically really lousy information about Kegels. There would be one website that had one paragraph, another website had another paragraph that would totally disagree with the other one. There wasn't anything deep. There was no really complete information. A lot of people selling devices, there was nothing really good. So I said, where is that information? And it's got to be in the research. So I basically pitched a tent in the medical library here at the University of Rochester and spent a year reading research studies about Kegels and the pelvic floor, and put together all the best parts of that program, created all the best parts of that research, and put together this program. I started doing it for myself, and 2 months later, it was everything was different. The sneeze pee was gone, the saggy feelings were gone, and the sex was back to being awesome, and even more awesome than it had been before.
Wow, that's amazing. So only 2 months, that's as long as it took.
Yep, 2 months, and it's minutes a day. It's not like, sometimes physical therapists will prescribe a Kegel program that's complicated, and it'll be like 20, an hour a day, 20 minutes at a time or something. And I knew, I had a little kid at the time. I couldn't do something like that. I needed something easy. So now there are women in 16 countries doing the Kegel Queen program, and it's pretty exciting for me to be able to share this information with women all over the world.
Awesome, that's amazing. So, are Kegels just for women, or are there benefits for men as well?
There are benefits for men too. And now I'm an expert in Kegels for women. I'm not an expert in Kegels for men. So I can talk a little bit about Kegels for men. And the big thing men can get from Kegels is one of the same benefits as with women, which is help with incontinence, which men can suffer from as they get older. The other thing Kegels can really do for men is to increase circulation around the pelvic floor, and it increases circulation to the prostate, it increases circulation to the penis. So that's all really good for prostate health and for sexual health, especially for men as they get older. So many men have problems with their prostate, so many men have trouble with erectile issues, and Kegels can be really good for those things for men too.
Absolutely. I mean, prostate cancer is one of the worst killers in men in this country, other than heart disease.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Wow. So, what about any other benefits in general?
So Kegels, we've talked about the three things that affected me are really the things that Kegels, how they affect women. So there's urinary incontinence is a big problem. Half of women literally are going to suffer with urinary incontinence at some point in their life. So Kegels can stop, at least reduce, or completely stop incontinence for a lot of women. Then pelvic organ prolapse, we talked a little bit about. The pelvic organs, the bladder, uterus, and rectum can actually, for women, they can literally fall out of their proper position. They basically fall out of place and take up space in the vagina. And it's extremely uncomfortable. It's not only physically uncomfortable, but it's really emotionally uncomfortable for women to feel like something's wrong with this really important part of their body. So Kegels can help reverse prolapse, and in some cases, even if the prolapse doesn't move, it can take away the discomfort of prolapse and help women be able to do the things that they couldn't do before because of that really painful, saggy feeling they get. Then the other thing is Kegels and sex. Any woman at any age who is sexually active can benefit from learning to control her pelvic floor muscles. And then women, especially after having going through pregnancy and birth or after menopause, especially those women can benefit from increasing their muscle mass and muscle tone in the pelvic floor. And that has tremendous benefits for sex.
Gotcha.
I should show you the pelvic floor before we talk more about Kegels and sex. There's a lot to say about it. I want to show you the pelvic floor. So here's a female pelvis. When you're standing, it's about like this, and I'm just going to move it around in all kinds of crazy positions an actual woman would not get into to show you these muscles. So here's a view you might have seen once or twice. So just to orient you, right, here's the vagina, here's the clitoris, there's the anus. So you can see it's this bowl of muscle.
It's a lot of muscle.
Yeah, it is. Here's the back view, there's the sacrum and the tailbone. So it's basically this bowl of muscle that is attached to the pubic bone at the front, the tailbone and sacrum at the back, and other parts of the pelvis too. But this bowl of muscle has a lot of really important jobs in the body. And before we talk more about sex, I just want to point out these muscles are part of women's sexual anatomy. I mean, the vagina has no structure without these muscles. It's, if there's the lining of the vagina, and then right on the other side of that are these muscles. The clitoris actually is connected to these muscles directly. These little bitty muscles here, the bulbocavernosus muscles. Every muscle in your body, every skeletal muscle, like your biceps, the muscles we think of as your muscles, not like the muscles in your stomach,
right.
But your skeletal muscles, every one is attached to two different things, and they have a function to move your bones, right? Because they're attached to two different things. And those little muscles are attached, actually one end of them is attached to the clitoris. And this is something most women go through their entire lives not having a clue that they actually have muscles they could use to move the clitoris. And that's only one of the things you can learn to really enhance your sex life when you gain control of these muscles.
Awesome. Awesome. Gotcha. So let's talk more. I mean, keep going.
Sounds like I heard the word clitoris. Let's talk some more.
Get my girlfriend on this call.
So one of the other big benefits for women, like Kegels for men, the circulation is so very important for any kind of sexual functioning. You have to have good circulation for arousal. You have to have good circulation for lubrication. You have to have good circulation for orgasm. And these muscles, you know, they're right there. They're like sex central. They're right there. They're part of your sexual anatomy. And so when the muscles are healthy, when they have really good blood flow, your experience of sex works better. You know, when you're 20, it works fine anyway. But as you go through life, especially for women after menopause, it really helps if you give it a little bit of a boost by making sure the circulation is good. You know, they say youth is a gift of nature and age is a work of art. And that's no less true with this part of the body than anything else. So it's especially useful for women past menopause to keep that circulation going, keep the tissues really well infused with blood. Then another benefit for women for sex is the muscles themselves. If the muscles, a lot of what a woman feels during an orgasm is these spontaneous rhythmic contractions of these pelvic floor muscles. So those muscles contract during orgasm every 0.8 seconds. And if those muscles are weak and limp versus are they strong and healthy and well-toned, which way is the orgasm going to be better? So that's part of something, again, women can do. If you're 20, the muscles are toned, no problem. But if the muscles have been through some pretty tough jobs, like going through pregnancy, giving birth, or just after menopause when your body is no longer directing so much attention to this part of the body, it can really be helpful to just give it a little boost and keep the muscles built up.
Definitely. Well, I mean, it just makes sense, especially after childbirth. I mean, that's a big trauma on the body, and especially those muscles have to expand so much, you know, to let the baby through. So it just, I mean, I'm assuming it also helps with healing after pregnancy as well.
Yes, it does, actually. And I'll just say, yes, childbirth can be traumatic, and one of the best ways for women to make it the least traumatic it can be is to make sure you have a healthcare provider who's going to support you in giving birth without drugs and interventions. Women don't realize, I think, how something like an epidural can create problems with these muscles. It can create lifelong problems because if you can't feel how you're pushing, you're going to push maybe too long, you're not going to push effectively, and you can really blow out the muscles. Also, if you have a doctor who likes to do episiotomy, cutting the muscles literally to make way for the baby, studies have shown for a long time now that routine episiotomy is really harmful. Forceps, they're not using so much anymore, really devastating to the pelvic floor muscles. And one of the best things you can do is to give birth without all that stuff and have a care provider working with you who really knows how to help you do it without all that stuff.
So natural childbirth or an at-home birth, is that what you recommend?
Well, I think home birth is a choice that I gave birth at home when I had my daughter, and I would definitely recommend home birth for any woman who is really comfortable with home birth and has good support. For women who say, you know, I'm going to do it because all my friends are doing it, but really deep down I would prefer to be in the hospital, that's not the right person to have a home birth. But if you've really done your homework, you have good support, you feel really on board with that plan, then as long as you've got the right kind of support, home birth can be a really safe and really wonderful choice. So we got totally sidetracked there. I can't even remember what we were talking about. Oh, so recovery, yes. I have heard from a couple of midwives who've told me that when their clients have had a tear, because those muscles can tear sometimes on the baby's way out, there can be a tear, and that women with really bad tears who've done the Kegel Queen program have actually done really, really well. They've healed much faster than without correct Kegel technique, and it's all about that really good circulation.
Exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of times people don't realize how important circulation is to your body, and that you have any kind of muscles in your body, whether it's a shoulder or a leg that's injured, or that the muscles are inflamed or tight. If you can't get circulation there, it's not going to heal. At least it's not going to heal as fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, let's talk more about sex then, because earlier you mentioned that, you know, not only can sex be better for the women who do Kegels, but also for their partner. So how does that work?
Yeah. Well, it's simple mechanics, and it sounds a little bit like spam, so I apologize. It sounds like spam, but Kegels can actually help a woman to tighten the vagina. So here's the deal. I'm going to show you with this model. So here's the vagina. I'm going to magically take off this outer layer of the pelvic floor muscle.
That's impressive.
There we go. It didn't even hurt. And so right behind the vagina, there's this gap in the muscle. This is called the urogenital hiatus. And this is where the vagina and the urethra go through. Now, just take 1 second to appreciate the miracle of the human body. I mean, for something this size, to be able to expand to allow a baby to come out, I mean, the baby fills up this entire space. It just gets completely out of the way. And then, you know, there you go, basically back to normal and having more babies if you want. I mean, it's just amazing what the body can do.
The miracle of life, right?
Absolutely. So this gap in the muscle, the urogenital hiatus, this is the structure of the vagina. So the urogenital hiatus can actually get bigger or smaller depending on how you use your body. And for women who've been through birth, not exclusively, but just sometimes with getting older, but this urogenital hiatus can actually get bigger. That translates to the vagina being not as tight. When you do Kegel exercises correctly, you're building up muscle mass. You're not just building tone, but you're literally building mass in these muscles. It's like bodybuilding for your vagina, and it decreases the size of this, and it literally makes the vagina tighter. So that translates to more sensation for both partners during intercourse.
Gotcha. Okay, but so I'm just wondering, I mean, if you're making the muscles bigger and you're making the space tighter, then how would that help with childbirth? I mean, it seems like it would be even harder to have a baby then because there'd be less space.
Well, it's really important to do Kegels correctly. So this is something that a lot of women are, even childbirth educators, doctors, there are a lot of people out there teaching Kegels who don't even know how to do them correctly. A huge thing that's overlooked is the importance of relaxing those muscles. So it's just like if you were doing anything else. Like I always use the biceps, they're handy, right? So if I'm going to work my biceps, I'm not going to just clench. I'm not going to carry a weight around and just do a curl for an hour.
Right.
I'm going to do a few strong, intense, sustained reps, and in between each one, I'm going to relax totally. After I'm done with my curls, I'm going to relax totally. And this is something a lot of people don't even think about with Kegels. They don't do the relaxing part. So what you have when you do really good Kegel technique, you're contracting really well and you're relaxing really well and learning how to control the muscles so that they can relax fully is a really, really big help with birth and just a basically sound part of good Kegel practice. It can actually happen that women who aren't doing Kegels right can actually end up having pain with sex or just pain generally from muscle spasms because they're tensing the muscles and they're not relaxing them.
Right, and so they're so tense they can't get circulation and they can't relax.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay, so, I mean, what is proper technique? Can we talk about that? Can you show us some, how do we do Kegels properly?
One of the really, really important things, one of the big myths, there's so many Kegel myths, and one of the big ones is you can do Kegels, this is what women hear all the time. Do some Kegels while you're stopped at a traffic light. Do some while you're standing in the grocery line. And the problem is, and do 200 of them a day. So that's like going like this like aerobic exercise whenever you happen to think of it. So there are a number of problems with that plan. And I want to tell you the 3 reasons you should never, women, that you should never do Kegels while you're driving your car. Okay? So one is because you can't do it just sort of randomly and do it effectively. You have to do Kegels on a schedule. Women who do Kegels kind of whenever an opportunity like a red light presents itself, don't end up sticking with the program. This is something that research has shown us. Really smart women researchers have looked into that exact thing, and they found that women who do them whenever won't do them. You have to make it part of your daily routine and tie it to something you're already doing in your schedule. So whenever you're in the grocery line, when you find yourself behind the wheel, those are not good times to do Kegels. Then another reason is because to do Kegels really effectively, there are different kinds of muscle exercise. And you work out, Tom, right?
Absolutely.
So, you know, there are different things you can try with your muscles. You can do a program that's focused on endurance. You can do a program that's focused on building mass. You can do a program that's focused on building strength. And to do Kegels really effectively, a lot of what you're doing is producing mass. So in order to build mass, you've got to do slow, strong, sustained reps. So this kind of thing, the 200 a day, it's like this. Like, I'm going to do 200 a day. Suddenly my biceps are going to look like Christopher Reeve. You know, no, they're not.
Right.
So you've got to do a small number of sustained, high-intensity Kegels. That's another reason not to drive, right? You're behind the wheel, and you need to put your full attention on what's going on with those muscles in order to do that maximum intensity exercise.
Right, just like you're at the gym lifting, you know, a big weight, right?
Exactly. So you can't drive safely while you're doing that. If you are in the grocery line, you know, you're not likely to be able to really give that exercise the attention it needs. And the other reason you can't do Kegels effectively like that is because you can't relax the muscles really effectively. We were just talking about it's so important. After each contraction, you've got to relax fully. And in order to relax fully, you've got to give your total attention to relaxing. So obviously, not a good idea when you're driving. And again, you know, not something you want to do in line at the bank either. You want to, you don't have to take your clothes off and put some kind of device in you. That is totally not necessary. All you need is your body, but you do need your full attention. So you've got to set aside just a few minutes to really focus on what you're doing when you do your Kegels.
Gotcha. And what about position? I mean, should you be standing up, sitting down, lying down? What's best?
Well, you can experiment with different positions. For a lot of women, there's a big learning curve with isolating the muscles. That's another really important part of doing Kegels correctly is isolating the muscles. And starting with diapers, we're trained to be cut off from and ashamed of this part of the body. So for a lot of women, there's a lot to learn about how to actually discover those muscles and how to actually move the muscles. And when I do this, what is that feeling exactly? So for a lot of women, they'll tend to contract their hip adductors, the muscles that move your knees together. A lot of women will contract their abdomen, and a lot of women will contract their glutes, their butt muscles. So what you want to do is figure out, for any woman who's working on this, you want to figure out if any of those other muscles are trying to help with your pelvic floor contraction. And if they're getting in the way, if you tend to always contract your abs, then you're going to want to choose a position for Kegels that will help you release your abdominal muscles. So if your abs tend to tighten up, you wouldn't want to do standing. That's one of the more challenging positions. You'd want to try lying on your back or lying on your side and really letting your belly just go to jello so that you can focus on relaxing your belly and isolating the pelvic floor. And there are different positions that are good depending on which muscles tend to be trouble for you.
Right.
Even at my stage of doing this, years of doing Kegels, my glutes want to help. So I tend to, sometimes I'll practice doing standing Kegels, which is more of a challenge, like, okay, I'm going to work on that and challenge myself. But most of the time I choose a position that's easy to help my glutes relax. So I'll have my hips flexed, meaning my knees are closer to my chest than they are when I'm lying flat. So that helps the glutes to stay relaxed. So positions are a little bit individual.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense that it's more involved than you might just think, like with your biceps, because I remember when I used to go to the gym a lot with bodybuilders, and they would be like in the mirror, like flexing like their shoulder muscles and like their lats and like muscles in their back, and I was like, how do you do that? And I would be like, which muscle is that? It's not that one. No, it's not that one. And you have to learn because you don't use those muscles as often, and you don't know how to exercise them properly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So is it like a trial and error process, or I mean, how do you learn?
Well,
I know you have a program that teaches this.
Yeah, I honestly haven't seen any other really thorough teaching. Sometimes women can get a thorough education in Kegels from a physical therapist. That tends to, sometimes it's great. Sometimes women's health PT just isn't that good. Sometimes they are so excited about what they're doing, they think you want to do PT for your pelvic floor all day long too, and they'll give you really long programs. So PT can be really good, and in all honesty, the Kegel Queen program was created because I saw a need that I couldn't get filled anywhere. So it's very comprehensive and really addresses all the different questions that women have, and there's follow-up too, so women who have questions can actually get their questions answered after they start the program.
Awesome. Well, walk us through the program real quickly and then let people know where they can find out more information about it.
So I believe you have a link, Tom, right, that you're going to...
Yeah, right under this video, people can check out the link, yeah.
Okay. So that's where to go. Use Tom's link on the page. And basically what the Kegel Queen program covers is every question you might have. When, how many, how do you work up to the full 3-minute workout? That's the core of the program, is the 3-minute workout. There's
so
more
only 3 minutes a day? That's all you need?
3 minutes. Well, we do the 3-minute workout. When you get to the maintenance level where I'm at, you do that 1 3-minute workout a day. In the more intensive phase, when you're getting started and learning and really building up the muscles, before you get to maintenance, you're going to do the 3-minute workout 3 times a day. Or there's a twice-a-day plan, which is easier for a lot of women to do because you can do it first thing in the morning, last thing at night. You don't have to worry about when to do it during the middle of the day.
Gotcha.
So you find out also there's more information about Kegels and sex. There's really detailed information about how to stick with Kegels, because I don't know if you're one of the 2 or 3 people on earth who's never quit an exercise program, but we often quit those programs after we start them. So to me, Kegels have changed my life so much that I really want to see these changes for you. I hear from women all the time who they can exercise in ways they couldn't do before. They're enjoying sex when they couldn't before. They're staying dry. One woman wrote recently she went on a trip to Disney World, and it was so cool because she didn't have to worry about leaking. This stuff changes women's lives in a really powerful way, and it would be such a shame to get started and then not have the tools to stick with it. So
definitely.
That's a really important part of it, is having those tools to stick with the program. So there's really, really specific information about the 3-minute workout. How do you breathe when you're doing your Kegels for optimum contractions and optimum relaxation? What specific positions are good depending on what's going on with your body? Exactly how do you do every little piece? It's in there, and then it's, you got to learn it, and then it boils down to just a few minutes a day. Tried to make it as easy as possible.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like an incredible program, and I know I've heard so many good things about you and your program, and that's why I wanted you on the show, because I just know that your heart is in the right place, and you're helping women all over the world really improve their health, and especially in this area that very few people will talk about. A lot of people are ashamed to talk about sex or talk about their pelvic region, And I really
Yeah.
appreciate that you're, the pioneer in this field that's really going out there and sharing this message. And, regardless of, if people think it's a bad thing or not, because obviously it's a good thing if you can improve someone's health. And I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate you bringing this message to your audience, because I think you just touched on something really, really important, which is women, we have all this shame about our bodies and our bodies everywhere. I mean, women, we don't even like our hair, much less what's between our legs. And for women, then, when there's a problem in this part of the body that has such an effect on our identity, if we can't control our pee anymore, we're not as good a lover as we were before, these things really hurt emotionally. And I know, based on my own personal experience and the women I've worked with, when that happens, you feel alone. And just the mere fact of knowing that you're not the only woman out there dealing with this stuff can itself be the start of a healing process.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge and helping women all over the world heal. So thank you so much for being with us today, Alyce.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Hey there, it's Tom Corson-Knowles, and I hope you loved the show today with Alyce. I hope you got some great notes and some great information. I hope this has kind of inspired you or educated you in an area of your health that maybe you weren't getting good information from elsewhere, and really hope this helps thousands of women all over the world live a healthier, happier life. So come join us at AuthenticHealthCoaching.com. There you can get a free copy of Dr. Candace Corson's Top 5 Nutrition Tips Report. It is the #1 guide to taking your health to the next level. And stay tuned for next week's show where we have a very special guest for you, okay? If you have any questions for Alyce whatsoever, post them in the comments below the show, and I'll make sure she answers any questions anyone has about this subject, okay? Have an incredible day. Take care. Talk to you soon.